Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to a pop-up episode of Teenagers, Toddlers, and Twins. I'm Ryan,
I'm John Anthony.
and this is Checking In with John Anthony. Oh, you like that?
Very nice.
See, when John and I started doing this back in September, we had to Zoom and then download and then edit an Adobe Audition and buy music. And I mean, it was fun, but I mean, this is much more interactive. So we're enjoying this very much. So, how are you, John?
I'm very well, thank you. And
Are you
yourself?
enjoying this? I'm good. Are you enjoying this weather, though?
I got to enjoy the weather, yes. It was a nice day.
Yes.
Got-
And
got to-
everything's been good since when did we talk? 2 weeks ago now?
yeah, I think that's about it. 2 weeks, yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
Okay.
So, to anybody who's watching, John and I have been talking about getting together and having a little bit of one of our fireside chats and doing what we do. And, like, just so you know, in case you don't know already, John and I wing it. All right. So, Richard and I on the Ryan Mercer show with Richard Masso, we pretty much we have a good idea about what we're talking about. Like, we have a topic, but John and I usually just wing it. I don't give him any sort of warning. I don't give him the questions to choose from. There's no double jeopardy. All right. I just throw it right at him. Okay. So tonight's question for John. John, I was thinking about this on the way home. Why is it so hard for people to get in front of their problems or issues? I'm somebody who realized a couple years ago that it can be so liberating when you, and that term may be sort of aggressive, confronting issues, getting in front of issues. But I was thinking, and I know this kind of deviates from your rules of the program and things of that nature. When you get in front of something, you own up to it right away. All right. Especially in this day and age when people are so quick to criticize, whether it be social media or something of that nature. You could easily be a target. You could become 1 million downloads in no time, right? It's maybe a little more difficult for people to be themselves. All right, if I'm being honest, but because social media, you want to be private and things of that nature, but it can be so liberating when you're just like, this is who I am, or this is what I did. And I'm sorry, I got sidetracked. Like I said, deviating from your program, my thought is that I take the power away from anybody around me. I take away their ability to hurt me with issues that I may be dealing with. Does that make sense? So, from my example, I was thinking of was AA. You say I'm an alcoholic. NA, you say that I'm an addict. Okay, that's part of the program, I believe. And you're owning up to it. You're getting in front of it. And if anybody's listening, I have been to neither of those programs, so I apologize, but I know a little bit of the ins and outs about the program. But the first part is kind of just admitting to it. So why is it so hard for people?
Well, because when you're doing that, what you're doing is taking responsibility for where you are. And it's not an easy place for people to go. The 4 dimensions of healing, that's the 3rd dimension, taking responsibility for my part. So it's so much easier for us to think it's always going to be this way and there's nothing I can do to change it, which is the 1st dimension, or, it's cause and effect and we're blaming other people or situations. And so once again, it's not my responsibility because somebody else caused it. And so it's hard to get to where I see my part in my life for a lot of us, because we're afraid that we're going to lose the "are you a cat" of other people, their respect, their understanding, acceptance, caring, appreciation, and trust, their love. And so we are cautious about what we do and what we say, and we won't admit to things. We get made fun of when we make mistakes, all these things that we grow up, trying to deal with. And if you look at a lot of children, it's real hard for them to admit that they did something wrong. It's, it was their sister or their brother, or the other person. So I think that's why it's hard.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And one thing I was thinking about as a maybe an example, if you will, while I was thinking about things, was we appreciate as people when people don't lie to us. If somebody makes a mistake, we appreciate that they own up to it right away, right? It's like, oh, thank you for owning up to it, not lying like I hid it under, or oh, didn't I send it and you didn't get it, like the email, or oh no, that was so and so, that was so and so, and you walk off and it wasn't so and so. We as people appreciate when people are honest with us, but it's so hard for us to own up to our mistakes and issues at times, wouldn't you say?
Well, it's hard for a lot of people. And I find what makes it difficult for people that aren't able to do that is then when you really boil it down, they're not able to give that love to themselves, even when they make a mistake. And when a person is able to give that respect, understanding, acceptance, caring, appreciation, and trust to themselves, they have that, their love light is on. And so they're not worried if somebody else isn't going to give me that, are you a cat? But when I'm not giving it to myself, the only place I'm getting it is from somebody else. And then I'm going to be threatened if I don't get it from somebody else. And so I have to be cautious about what I say and what I do. And I don't want to admit my mistakes and things like that. And then that's how we get caught up in that.
And do you think that that's a human reaction, a reaction that's taught to us? I mean, I think as parents, we a lot of times go, just tell me the truth, you won't be in trouble. And it's, I parents, I think it's best to hold up that part of the deal, right? If you're honest with me, you're not going to be in trouble in some way, shape, or form, right? So to keep that trust, but I mean, where does it come from? I mean, I think if I'm thinking back as far as I can remember, it was maybe just a natural instinct that, like, oh, I don't want to get yelled at, or I don't want to be responsible. It's just like a natural instinct. But then we carry that into adolescence and adulthood, and even into our careers. Like I said, we maybe try to, not take responsibility for our mistakes or we cover them up. Like, where can it start? Do you have a
Well,
thumb on it?
it starts as a child, yeah. See, because we can't give love to ourselves as a child. We are totally dependent on it from others. Usually our primary caretakers. Ideally our parents, or it could be our grandparents or our step parents or whatever. And we often, when we make mistakes, we often get punished. There's a consequence. So we don't want to admit because we don't want to get punished. We don't want to admit because we're afraid we're going to lose the "Are you a cat?" the love from other people. And it's an evolution. It's an emotional maturity. Children at a very young age learned to lie as a way of trying to get out of the consequence of their behavior, because they're not able to give that love to themselves and they're afraid of losing it to whoever they're lying to. And we mature, and ideally we mature to where we are able to take responsibility for our lives and admit when we make mistakes, because we are able to give that love to ourselves. But a lot of us, don't get there because of incidents and traumas that we've experienced as we're going through life that stunt our ability to grow and mature like that.
So from the very basics of your program or your mindset or your teachings, and I know that your program is based off of a lot of uh, literature and things that you've conferences and things that you've learned on your own and from other people and adapted. So what what can it do to us as adults if we don't deal with things? Now I know people might be thinking like, well, don't you guys talk about this all the time? But I'm really trying to put an emphasis on people, if not owning up to their mistakes, just being who they are. Like, yeah, I was married once, it didn't work out, and I moved on, I learned from it. Well, what did you learn from it? Well, I don't want to talk about it. Or can it be more beneficial to say, well, we found that we just didn't get along. We weren't compatible. There was a lot of mistakes that were made along the way, and we just thought it would be best that we separate. So I guess my question is eh, like what kind of effect does that have on us in the long term if we develop that personality to just be closed off, private people? We don't talk about anything with anybody. Like, how can that affect us in the long run?
Well, incidents and traumas cause emotional wounds. And if those wounds aren't healed, then it's like going through life with broken bones or pulled muscles. Um, we're going to be limping along. We're not going to have full range of motion in the things that we can talk about and do, because we have a wound that we haven't healed. So, and if a person has very few traumas in their life, then it might not, have a really big deal, how it impacts them. But we all experience incidents and traumas that cause emotional pain. People die, relationships break up, people say and do hurtful things, they make promises that they don't keep. And those things cause emotional wounds. And if we don't learn how to heal them, then they handicap us. Some people call it, baggage. I'm carrying around all this heavy baggage. An analogy I liked is when you're born, you have this huge mansion to live in with all these rooms. And then you happen to be playing in one room in that mansion, and an incident or trauma happens that's very painful emotionally. So you walk out of that room, you close the door, and you lock it and seal it. And then you're playing in another room, and then an incident or trauma happens in that room, and then you leave that room. So when we started out, we had this huge mansion with all these rooms. And then now, as we get older, we have less and less rooms. So maybe all we have is a narrow hallway that we can go down to, the kitchen, and the rest of the house we can't utilize because can't go there because I got the trauma about that. Can't go here because I got a trauma about this. And so that's how it can affect us, and when we get really old, we can have like nothing to talk about because it's all these wounds.
So if you saw my face, that was a sincere reaction because I have a very, I like to say, cinematic brain, if you will. And I pictured a child like going to a room and something happened. They close the door and they close the door and they close the door. And then, like you said, suddenly they're left. They're not left with any rooms to go to. They're not left with anybody to talk to. And just picturing that was a very upsetting vision, if you will. I was like, wow, like that is crazy. But I think it makes sense. Like if you hear influencers, or let's just talk about average people, right? Me, average person. If I talk about I want to do this or I want to do that, but I can't. I can't do that. I shouldn't do that. Why can't you do it? Ah, well, I don't have the time. No, I'm afraid of failing, right? I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of losing. I'm afraid that I'm going to put this effort in and nobody's going to react to anything I'm doing, right? And I think that's one of the humps that successful entrepreneurs are able to get over is, it's we're going from talking about emotional wounds and family or and past wounds and things like that to talking about being an entrepreneur and things of that nature. But the point I'm trying to make is that a successful entrepreneur often has multiple streams of income. And they didn't get there by saying, well, this might happen, or that they were like, no, like, I'm going to do this. This is what I need to do to make it happen. And a lot of entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, are very good problem solvers, critical thinkers. And I would say, I know not all of them are very positive people, right? You have to be positive and get along with people to be able to build these streams of income to some extent. I know there's people where maybe that's not how they behave, but when you treat people like people and you're fair and you listen to them and you really take their thoughts and concerns and ideas into consideration, you build that relationship and trust, and your company grows and you grow and everybody's happy and able to get along. But if you're closed off, right, you're not going to get anywhere. And then backing up, because I went off on a bit of a tangent, being that person who doesn't want to do something because I can't do it, like, that's it's not for me, right? And that's a bunch of closed rooms, right?
Well, yeah, and it's around fear. You're right there. And see, and as we develop as a person, there's a part of our early development where our peers mean a lot to us, and sometimes more than what my parents think of me my peers mean to me. And so we get afraid of losing that love from our peers, that acceptance from our peers.
Because everybody wants to be liked, right?
Because we want to be liked, we want to be part of the group. And when we're a child, we just do things. I remember when I was just out of college, I had some roommates, and we were living in an apartment complex that had a swimming pool. And you would see these kids. We had diving boards, and or a diving board, and you'd see these young kids, and they would, be doing all kinds of things off the diving board, making good dives, making bad dives. It didn't matter. But then as soon as people started reaching their teenage years, especially it seemed like the young girls, they were all of a sudden self-conscious, and then they didn't want to go off the diving board because they were afraid they were going to look silly or they weren't going to be able to do it well. And certainly sometimes people are afraid to fail. Some people are afraid to succeed. Fear plays a big role in our life in a lot of different ways, but fear is just the absence of love from myself to myself. And I can't give it to myself as a child, but I can as an adult. So I think all that plays a factor in why people don't want to try. And then you just don't do anything because you want to be good at everything, but you're not going to be good at everything, and so you just don't try anything new. And then there you are, Johnny one note, so to speak. It's all you just know that one note because you're afraid of making mistakes when you play other notes.
So has anybody figured out teenagers yet? Because if they have, can you send them my way?
Oh yeah, I got a list of thousands of people I can give you. No,
I was gonna say I'm at that stage with Alexis, and we're going through some things as a family. And I said this on one of our podcasts together that I've taken the approach that I'm not going to talk to her like a parent, because one thing I've always said is that I feel that as a teenager, you no matter who the parent is, no matter what we do, for the most part, it's just going to go in one ear and out the other, right? So it's kind of like we can have all this experience, we still don't know everything as parents, but my teenager in her mind believes that she knows what she's doing, that she knows what's best for her, that she knows what she wants to do. So for me to go like, oh, what are you doing? You want to throw your life away? Huh? No, that doesn't pay any money. What are you going to do that for? No, I don't like you hanging out with them. No. Well, because they do this. My new approach is, okay, why do you want to do that? Okay. Sounds like a good idea. Well, somebody told me it doesn't make a lot of. Well, do you want to do it? Yeah, I want to do it. Okay, then do it. Don't worry about the income, because I think that's one thing that my generation is learning more and more, is that the money doesn't mean as much to us as our mental health does. And I'm getting off on a little bit of a tangent here, kind of sidetracked, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is that with my teenager now, I'm talking to her, or trying to talk to her as a peer, right? I want to be open minded. I don't want to approach her like a hammer fist, like I know everything and she doesn't know anything, or she doesn't know anything. Because as a result, as parents, what happens when we start telling our kids they're wrong, they're wrong, they're wrong? They pull back. I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. You're wrong. You don't get me. You don't get me, right? So I'm taking a new approach. It's working out. I'm listening to her. And I kind of got sidetracked here, but I guess the point I'm trying to make is I don't want to instill that fear in her right now.
Yeah, well, listening is always good. And mistakes that we make with teenagers, I think, is that we don't listen. We're trying to tell them what to do. And it's really the mistakes that we make as a parent in various ages. When they're one, we tell them what to do and they do it. But as soon as they start to turn two, they have a mind of their own, and now they want to have power in their life, in their decisions. And then if we just keep giving them disobey commands, then we're going to be battling with that child all the way through the rest of their life. Like I've said before, you don't say put on your pants, because they're going to say no. So you say you want to wear your blue pants or your red pants. Now they got a choice. They're wearing pants. I'm happy. they're making choices, they're happy. And when you can see that throughout the childhood as they get older, you're going to be in a lot better position to be able to give direction to their life, but it's kind of you want to steer it. There's the old saying, from the Bible: spare the rod, spoil the child. So a lot of people interpreted that as a stick that you hit your kids with when they don't do the right thing. But that's not where it comes from. Back in the day when it was started, there were a lot of shepherds, and shepherds had 7-foot rods that they would herd their sheep with. And they weren't wanting you to hit your kid with a 7-foot stick. They were wanting you to use the stick to give direction to the sheep so that you have a long extension of your arm, so to speak, that you can herd the sheep away from the left more to the right, or herd the other sheep more from the right to the left, so that you're getting them going down a straight path. Well, this is what we want to do as a parent, to give them direction, but not to control them, and then, Alexis, like most teenagers, that's good that she's there. I can do it without you. I don't need you. See, because the child has to have that confidence, otherwise they're not going to go out on their own. So they have to have that confidence that they can do it, but on some level they still know that they can't, but they think they could if they were just given the opportunity. The best explanation of teenagers in a title is a book that I ran across. I don't remember who the author is, and the title is "Get Out of My Life, but First Can You Give Me and Susie a Ride to the Mall?"
That's perfect.
Yeah. Teenagers don't want you to control anything that they do, but they need you in certain areas. And they haven't made that transition from, total dependence to total independence. So they're taking steps. They're independent in some areas, but they're dependent in others. And, that's good. That way they can take those steps in a way that they can succeed, as opposed to they're totally dependent. And then when they turn 18, they have to become 100% independent, like they're going to be able to learn it all right away, in one day, on their 18th birthday, boom.
It's crazy that the balance we have to find, isn't it? Because you see it all the time. You can be one way, and you were so stuck in that way that the kid was like, no, I'm never going to be like my dad, right? Or the opposite, where it's like, okay, dad, I'm just using an example here. Dad drinks, right? Dad's going out with his friends. Dad doesn't really check in on me. Well, I guess I can go out and, hey, John, you want to stay out late tonight? Yeah, well, my dad's not going to be home, so I guess it's fine, right? It's about balance, and me, like going back to the pants situation, where I'm at with Jade right now is she likes to wear bright dresses with pants that don't match the color, and she likes to wear long socks and pull them all the way up. And in my head, I'm like, oh, I don't want kids to start making fun of her, but she's so happy that this is the outfit she picked out, and it's not torn, it's not dirty, it's clean. So Monica and I are like, all right, hoping for the best, right? So I'm kind of like, all right, I want to help her find her independence. I want her to be confident in every outfit she chooses. I never want her to have any sort of mindset that, about her figure or her outfit or anything like that. But then I'm like, oh, I also, like I said, I don't want somebody to be like, oh, yeah, Jade, you don't dress right. You dress funny, and then I'm like, then I get lost in my fears, but I'm kind of like, okay, let's hope that this all plays out the best that it can. Maybe she'll grow out of the phase.
Yeah, because you're in your negative fantasies where you're fantasizing about the future and you have all these kids picking on her. When, she's going to have that experience as she goes through it, because she's either going to have people say things about what she picks, and then she's going to adapt and start picking things that match more. Or if she's able to give herself that internal support, yeah, I'm different, and I like to not match.
Right. That's what the other
See,
hope I have.
but as parents, we are always wanting to protect our kids from hurt. But really, what we need to do is to support them as they're going through the things that can be hurtful, because then they're learning how to cope in life and how to survive on their own. But if we protect them, then they don't know what to do when that happens. So it's like if they never have disappointment because we're always giving them everything they ever wanted, there's going to be a day, maybe in their 20s or 30s, when they don't get everything they want, and then they're going to have to deal with disappointment. And it's going to be a lot rougher to learn it as a 25 or 35-year-old than it is as a 5 or 10-year-old.
So let me use that to quote my co-host Richard. He would say segue. So I'm going to use your example to segue into adulthood. So I get into a relationship, maybe I get married, all right, and we're moving along, and I meet their cousin. Let's just say cousin for the sake of example, and her cousin don't get along. And hey, what's wrong? I don't want to talk about it. Do I let that slide? Do I try to resolve the situation? Like how do I deal with that sort of roadblock, if you will? Or do I just let her, my partner or him, do what they want to do and leave them be and be like, that's a subject that I just shouldn't touch? And I guess I'm saying the segue because I was using the example of, be confident in Jade's decision, be confident that that's what she wants to do, and then I'll guide her through it. But if I do that with my partner, what can happen with me? Because it could affect me. Well, I want to understand what happened. I want to understand why you react this way. No. And do I let it be? Or do I somehow figure out the next step with her or him or without them? For myself or for
Well,
both of us.
I think that one of the challenges between a parent and a child, especially a teenager, is that we want to know all about their life as a parent. And so we start asking questions. And the child can feel like we're prying or we're trying to catch them in something. And kids do things that they're not supposed to do sometimes. And if I'm prying, they're going to try to hide that. And then they're going to get frightened that I'm going to find out. And so they can turn it to anger and get angry at me because I'm prying. And then that's one of the ways that the communication shuts down between a parent and their child. The other thing is that what we're doing when we're trying to get that child to talk about what they're feeling about a situation, in essence, what we're doing is saying we want them to get naked, so to speak, emotionally, where they have to be completely vulnerable. While I'm sitting here, in my pedestal of a parent, and, completely clothed and not showing any of my emotions, it's going to be very uncomfortable for them because there's going to be the potential for shame and embarrassment about where they are and why they're there, or fear of being seen as not lovable. So if I want my child to start talking about their feelings, then I need to model by talking about mine. And not in a way that I'm trying to make them responsible for my feelings, but in a way that, well, I remember when I was, younger, somebody did this to me and I felt sad or I felt fearful, and then they see that, okay, well, daddy felt that way, so that's not so bad if I feel that way. And then maybe they can try the water and stick their foot in, so to speak, and talk about their feelings.
So if mom and dad were closed off, I might be closed off.
Well, we learn from our parents.
Yeah.
We learn from them what to do, and we learn what not to do oftentimes. See, and our society, so often we don't talk about feelings. We, especially for males, we grow up trying to hide our emotions because we are afraid if we're going to be emotional that we're going to look like we're not a man. And when the truth is that we all have male and female energy. And Men have emotions just like women have emotions. And so if I can grow up being able to talk about feelings in a more comfortable way, then it's going to be easier for me as I get older. Some things you've done the check-in, that we have in my book.
Yeah.
Where you read the agreements, and then you say if you've broken any, and then B, that's A, and then B is how am I feeling emotionally? And I've had people that went through my program that took that to their families and had their kids do a check-in so that the kids can learn how to identify what feelings are and talk about their feelings. And this works really well with children that are acting out their feelings in anger or violence. Teaching them how to talk about those feelings, then they don't have to act it out. So that's another way that you can circumvent that I don't want to talk about it. And the other thing that's common is they say, I don't know. Well, a lot of parents say, oh, yeah, they don't know. And so they stop prying or stop pursuing instead of saying, no, I'll sit here and wait until you tell me why you did that. And we grew up as adults then just telling ourselves, I don't know, as a way of avoiding having to take responsibility for where we are. But then we're not going to be able to process through that situation and heal it on our own if we don't see what my part is in this incident or trauma.
Yes, definitely. So I want to try to put the pieces together real quick, summarize at the 30-minute mark, just so nobody's getting lost with us. Because in any conversation, if you're a person, if you have conversations with people, that things can kind of just keep going and lead to different conversations. So we started out talking about people being willing to get in front of their issues, traumas, deal with their issues or traumas, and what that looks like, and why more people can't do it. And then we started talking about helping those people and giving decisions and things of that nature. And it started talking about kids, giving our kids the options about which pants they want to wear. I use the example that sometimes Jay dresses a little crazy, and then I get lost in my fear. And then I ask the question, so do I kind of just let this ride? Well, I use John's examples and mindset, and I'm kind of just like, well, she's closed, doesn't look terrible. Let's let her go to school and hopefully this works out. And then we started talking about keeping that mindset with our partner, where if our partner experienced a trauma or something of that nature and they're a little resistant, do I just go, okay, well, I'll be over here if you want to talk about it, or just let it ride. But as we know, that can cause trouble in our relationships and long term, short term, and we need to start addressing things. So, but real quick, John, I have a question for you outside of the chat, somebody who's listening in. So I'm going to just read it to you if I can.
Okay.
So I need to look for my phone because I'm having trouble seeing it. So my daughter never speaks about her father who passed away 3 years ago when she was 10. I tried many times to speak about how she feels about her father passing, but she just doesn't talk about it. She tells me she is fine. I just let it go because I feel like I am bothering her. Should I let it go? Or you think eventually she will speak about it with me, or perhaps she has released her feelings with her friends? And is that okay? And I guess it's okay.
Well, that's tough to just have that question come in not knowing anything about the incident or the trauma that happened when they died, how they died. It's important that our children learn to trust themselves. And if I'm speaking about the loss of my husband or her father, then I can be setting an example of how it's okay to do that. And then maybe she'll join me. But it might, and I don't know if she had a good relationship with the father or if she had a bad relationship with the father.
Let's say that somebody had a bad relationship or not a strong one. Let's say it that.
Well, I would suggest, getting that child support, by, talking to a counselor or therapist so that they have somebody that they can talk to about it. Oftentimes, it's very difficult for a parent to put on the hat of I'm going to help my child. I'm going to be the counselor for my child, and I'm going to help them through this situation, because children want to believe that they're just as good as the parent and they don't need the help. And it's real hard sometimes for children to take direction from their parent. Somebody else can give them that direction and they go, oh, that's great information. But when the parent tells them, it's like, you don't know what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really hard to create that space for that child. So if you have somebody who's a professional at it, then they are going to be able to be with that child, and they're going to be wearing the counseling hat. They're not going to be wearing the hat of mom. And then the child is confused. Are you wearing your mom hat or are you wearing your counselor hat? So that's what, just one of the challenges that happens. And
so boom, question real quick. Can parents wear the counselor hat?
Well, parents can wear whatever hat they want, but it doesn't mean they're going to necessarily be effective. Depends on the relationship with the child, and it depends on the child, and just how the parent wears that hat. I know, I have 3 girls, twins that are 10 and a half, and a daughter who just turned 7 a few months ago, and it's not easy for them to take suggestions from daddy. When I start to try to tell them something, that they don't want to go there. So it doesn't surprise me that the child might not want to talk to mommy, because maybe the child's afraid that if it does, it's going to make mommy cry.
Can I ask you something before you go any further than that? Can the child maybe not want to do it because they know that mom or dad didn't have a great relationship with mom or dad?
Well, there can be any number of reasons like that,
Yeah.
where the child is trying to take responsibility for the emotional well-being of the parent, and so they don't want to go someplace. And sometimes it's because they don't know how to deal with their own emotional pain. That's why it's good to have somebody who does that for a living, so to speak, work with that child, and then they can determine if the child is in an okay place or they're not. And so there's no cut and dry answer here, but children oftentimes aren't able to talk to their parents about things. So I wouldn't take it personally if I was that parent, but I would find somebody else that she can talk to, so she can get that support. And it could be an aunt, if I don't want to go to a professional counselor. It could be a grandmother, and it could be one of the child's peers' mothers, because they see them differently and they're not afraid of losing the "are you a cat" of their mother with that other person, like they are when they're talking to their mother.
I like that. And you actually just made me think. I didn't really think about it until you said it, that, or whatever you did or said jogged my memory, that sometimes it, and just a random thought, random, throwing it out there, moms and dads, aunts and uncles, who are guardian, the child may not talk to the parent because along the way they overheard, or either to their face or overheard, well, your father does this, well, your mother does this. Well, then as a child, I don't want to bring it up to mom or dad if I know that the relationship's not good. I don't want to get them angry or upset. Or I've seen it happen. The flip side is, well, I'm trying to talk to you, but you have nothing good to say about, you just get upset when I talk about mom or dad. Well, that's how your father is. Well, that's how your mother is. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't have any direct answer there. I'm just, saying scenarios I've seen.
Yeah, and what I would say is it's important for the child to believe it can trust its own decisions. And so if I'm doing things where I'm trying to make the child think they're wrong for what they're choosing, then that's when they're going to have self-doubt. And then that's when they can also begin to have the feeling that they're not good enough. So, parenting is not an easy thing. And oftentimes we learn with the oldest child, and then, we readjust to the other children because we don't want to make the same mistakes that we made with the oldest. And so it's important that the child believes that it's okay where it is, and that I'm not directly or indirectly sending the message that you're not okay. So,
Yeah. Yeah. John's leaving me right now, everybody.
oh boy.
John left me. He knocked into everything. So yeah, circling back to my original question before we got off on 20 tangents here, which but I think that's okay because I think just putting it out there, I think that's one of the awesome things about podcasts is the ability to go this way or that way and talk about different things. So yeah, I just from a personal point of view, and again, I can't make anybody do this. We can't make anybody do what they don't want to do. I wish there was a way to help people see that you can and will feel so much better if you, I'm using the term again, get in front of things or own up to things. Because, like I said to you before, and if anybody's joining us now, you take away anybody's power, and this might not be terminology that John agrees with, but you take away people's power to hold something against you or use it as a weapon verbally to hurt you emotionally when you say, yeah, that's me. Yeah, I did it. Yep, that's how I live my life. That's the choice that my partner and I make. That's how we live our lives. Yep, that happened to me when I was 21. Yeah, I did that and I was stupid and I'm owning up to it now. But people, you see it all the time. It's just like, "Oh no, I don't want to talk about that. No, I don't." Or we're a private family or we're private people. And then it's like I can't really have a conversation with you because you're so private. You're just keeping so many things held in. But you can it's so liberating when you're just like, "Yep, that's me. Yep,
Well,
I did that."
it's liberating because what we're doing is we're finding those areas that we have fear of losing something that we have, or a fear of not getting something I desire, and bringing love into that area of my life. And when I have love in my life, that's energizing. When I have fear, that's not energizing. So when we can learn that these incidents and traumas that we go through have the opportunity for us to learn how to be more loving to ourselves and then to others, we're going to have a different outcome than if we are frightened about these incidents and traumas that have happened to us and we try to hide them and we try to deny them. That's not going to bring love into my life.
Eh,
So,
No, well, I was gonna say, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Monica says I cut people off on this show. I'm sorry if I did.
well, that's okay. I was going to say that we're trying to get that. We want other people to understand us and to accept us and to respect us. But if I don't show up by letting them know who I am and where I am, they're not going to have anything to understand. They're not going to have anything to accept about me or respect. So oftentimes in our fear of losing that respect and understanding, acceptance, caring, appreciation, and trust from others, we don't do things that ends up denying us from the opportunity to get that from other people. Now, granted, what other people give us that love, it's only gravy because we have to be the source of our own love and cook the meat and potatoes of our meal, which we can do as an adult, but we can't do that as a child. So
I,
that's part of the process.
yeah, definitely. And one of the things that I was thinking is that the us as humans, the emotional side of things is just so complex. And when I think about things, it gets very, I'm trying to put it together, but then I have another idea and another idea. I think about another thing or another thing. And what I mean by that is when I'm talking about we can feel liberated as people when we own up to things or just say like, yeah, I did that. It was in the past or it was stupid or yeah, I did it and I'm, happy I did it. You can also develop this mindset to be more open as an individual and then you're more fun to be around. People want to talk to you. It's like, sometimes people try to bring drama my way, if you will, like, oh yeah, this person did that. And it's like, so what? Like did they murder somebody? Did they, did do something absolutely horrific? No. Oh, okay. So they made this mistake as a human, as an adult. So what? You're perfect. And I think that's something that's just like so common is everybody just wants to act like they're not flawed in some way, shape, or form. They grew up in this nice house, mom and dad got along, or mom and dad got divorced, whether it was ugly or peaceful. People are just like, no, I don't want to talk about it. And in turn, sometimes you're just like, you can be judgmental. Does that make sense? Whereas the opposite side, when you liberate, you're like, yeah, so what? So what? Not a big deal.
Yeah, well, the person who can talk about it is going to have more likelihood to be giving themselves that "Are you a cat?" that love than someone who's not able to talk about it. And because I'm not wanting to talk about it because I have a fear of I'm going to lose something. I'm going to lose somebody's respect or their acceptance or understanding. And shame is when I'm judging myself through somebody else's eyes. That's me looking down on myself. And rather than looking down on myself, in order to have more of a helping, healing response, if I take responsibility for what I did, and I don't take responsibility for anything I didn't do, then if I did do something and I made a mistake, then I can have the healthy shame. Oops, I made a mistake. And then I don't have to worry about hiding that from me because I'm admitting I made the mistake, and I'm okay with the fact that I made that mistake because I've learned from it, and I'm not going to repeat that mistake again. But see, shame is also like fungus. Fungus grows really well in the dark. And if I have something that I'm ashamed about and I'm hiding it from everybody, it's going to grow and grow. And it's growing in my mind. It's my thinking. It's what I'm thinking about me that is really feeding my shame, because I'm judging myself through what I think other people might think of me. And so if I bring that out into the sunlight and just, admit that it's there, the sunlight makes the fungus go away, and then it doesn't have a hold on me anymore, is what you were trying to say, I think, in a different way.
Yeah, and the reason I made that face was not towards you. That I just was like, you have such a way of explaining things because it's like, yes, like, and I'm thinking to myself, if somebody holds on to something, right, they may not just be holding on to it. They may start thinking about the what ifs this hasn't happened. What if I had done this? What could I do differently? Where at some point you just need to, like you said, find a way to be like, this is what happened. This is what I can do differently as a person moving forward, right? Even if you were part of the accident or the incident or the trauma that happened and you're carrying it and you're saying it's my fault, I shouldn't have done it, you can't change it, right? We wish that there's things that we could change. Well, actually, I'm not somebody who wishes that there's things I could change. One time Monica asked me what would I say to the younger me, and I said that I'd say just keep going, right? Because if I said something like, "Well, you'll see, don't worry, it all works out," the younger me is going to be like, "Yo, what the hell did he mean? What happens? Like, what am I going to experience?" Where if you just let things be and let things take their course, and you can end up getting to a place where you're happy as an individual and as a partner. It's life changing, but like we keep saying, you have to be able to develop that healthy shame, and really develop that mindset of like, all right, it's done. I can't do anything to change what has happened. What did I learn? What can I do to help somebody else? Maybe that's a way of healing. Or if I need to deal with that situation again, what will I do to do different or make sure that it doesn't happen?
Yeah, well, in the scientific world, we have the atom, and at one time we thought that was the smallest thing. Electrons, neutrons, protons. Nothing was smaller than an atom. And then later in quantum physics, we found out that there are things that are smaller than atoms. Well, in the science of dealing with emotional pain, 80, 100 years ago, people didn't talk about their feelings. They just did things and they just kind of just didn't talk about their feelings. Carolyn Meese says, the reason that we had to learn to talk about our feelings in the 40s, 1940s and such is because we developed the atomic bomb. And if we didn't start talking about our feelings and learning how to relate on that level, that we were going to end up blowing the world up and everybody in it with the atomic bomb. So it's her perspective, and I find that interesting. So in the 80s, we started to realize that traumas that people experience have a direct bearing on a child's life or a person's life. And so we start looking at the trauma and what happened to you. What was the incident that happened? In the work that I do, if you look for, like with the atom, and you're looking for the smaller particles, if you want to like take a microscope and magnify the incident of the trauma, what you also have that's causing us pain isn't just the idea that you rejected me and I have emotional pain. There's also what I think about me that I was rejected. There's also what I think other people are thinking about me that I was rejected. And then there's what the person that rejected me thinks about me when I was rejected. So those last three things, what I think, what other people think, what that person thinks, are all going on in my head. The incident happened, I got rejected. But now I'm making it mean all these different things with my own thinking. The thing is, we blame it all that pain on the rejection, and we don't see that there's things that we're doing that are piling on the pain, so to speak, that we have control over. And if we don't learn how to take responsibility for our thoughts and our feelings and heal our wounds, then we're going to be reacting to them and having negative fantasies about how this is going to happen again. And then those negative fantasies run away with us and scare us even more. And then we want to turn it to anger or violence, or we want to just shut down and numb out or distract ourselves when we're saying, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, the person that doesn't want to talk about it is just trying to numb out to it or distract themselves from it, thinking it's going to go away. No, it doesn't go away. Talking about it actually helps it to go away when I find what the fear is and then how I'm not loving myself around that situation. See, that's what makes the pain go away. Giving love to our fears from myself to myself. And that's what we teach in our groups, and that's what we work on. You know.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing really quick, because I think it could be very easy for somebody to say, when John and Ryan talk, they just keep talking about, are you a cat and past wounds and emotions and this and that. But I think it's important for people to understand that it's part of a program, one, right? And our emotions intertwine, right? So we're saying the same things at times because it all pertains to, it all comes back and circles back to your program and the tools that I believe work, right? So if we're saying, are you a cat? Well, why is he saying, are you a cat, when he's talking about owning up to something? Well, because I'm giving myself respect, understanding, caring, appreciation, and trust. Well, he said that on the last episode when he was talking about his issues with his mom. All right. Well, I need to give myself, are you a cat, and her, are you a cat? So I just wanted to make that point real quick. If it sounds like John and I are saying the same thing or the same resolution at times, that's because we are. That's because it's tools, and that's because they work. And then, yeah, go ahead if you wanted to say
Well,
something.
yeah, see, it's the repetitiveness of going over that again and again that creates that new neural pathway in our brain,
Like
so that
working
we
out, right?
respond differently to our fears than what we taught ourselves when we were a child, where we're numbing out or using distractions or addictions or getting angry at others or ourselves. And the thing about the Are You a Cat is, if I tell you, love yourself, love yourself. Well, the concept of love is so
I do love
big.
myself. I go shopping.
Well, see, but and it's really give love to yourself, not to love yourself. So I should
Right.
watch how I say that. But see, how to love is such a huge component. Yes, it's like you can't get your hands around. It's like trying to put your arms around the world. It's just too big to grasp. But when you break it down to 6 different ways that we give love, in the respect, the understanding, acceptance, caring, appreciation, and trust, then it becomes doable. Because respect is when I don't do anything I don't want to do, or allow someone else to do something to me that I don't want done to me. Then I'm giving myself respect. And understanding is listening to my thoughts and feelings and paying attention to my behaviors. Then I'm giving myself understanding. And when you break it down in ways that are manageable, because what we're doing is we're changing our thought pattern, and
Right.
we're focusing on doing things, not trying things, doing things that bring love into our life. And when we bring love into our life, we feel more love. And that changes my attitude and it changes my experience. But if I keep doing things coming from my fear, then I'm going to be causing more fearful feelings, more fearful attitude, and then a fearful experience. And this is why we have to pay attention, because our thoughts are very powerful, but we're having them all the time, and we don't realize that we can choose what we think about.
Right, right. Yeah. And I just wanted to reiterate that point because I know that it sounds like we're saying the same thing sometimes, and we are.
Yeah.
So so as we get to the end of our episode here, John, I want to ask you a random question, and it kind of pertains to getting in front of our issues or owning up to them, so that we can be better people, so that we can give ourselves "Are you a cat?" so that we can understand people better, and so that we can reconcile relationships and hopefully build some new ones. Random question: if I move away to another state, out of sight, out of mind, right? Can I get better mentally, emotionally if I'm moving away from the place where the trauma took place? Or is there a good chance that it's going to follow me and continue to drag me down? And I understand there's probably not just one answer, but what would your opinion be on that?
Well, the trauma that has happened is inside of me. And we might want to blame it on the house or the area or the people, but I'm going to be going with me to that new area. So the healing that needs to happen needs to happen for me. So sometimes getting away can be helpful, but the universe is a very, interesting phenomenon in how when we have a wound, we will attract something that is going to bump into that wound, because it's an opportunity for us to learn how to heal it. So if I have a controlling parent that I just move away from, I may end up having a controlling boss, or I may end up having a controlling partner. So now I'm going to have to deal with that emotional wound of what happens when somebody is trying to control me and I don't want to be controlled. I'm going to have to learn how to deal with it in that new area or that new house. So it doesn't, if I want to move away, that's fine, because if you need to learn it, the universe will bring it to you. It's almost like, DoorDash, oh, here's your trauma. you thought you left it back there, but here you
Oh,
go.
I saw you drop this. I wanted to give it back to you real quick.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, because I've always been, our parents. I think that's a big one, right? Don't run away from your problems, right? Face your problems, and
Yeah.
so in
Yeah.
the grand
The,
scheme of
the,
this, go ahead.
the
Yeah,
analogy that I used to use, shows my age. When people had phones that had you know, the phone base, and then you put the phone, the the earphone and the mouthpiece on top of it, and they have those long curly cords,
yeah,
that can expand, and then so it's like when you take that handle and you're walking away and you got that long curly cord that's stretching out, and then all of a sudden it just comes flying back, and so you have the phone, that base comes flying back at you, and bam, it hits you. So that's what happens sometimes when we're trying to get away from something. It's gonna come back, and it's gonna hit you.
Do you
So
make these up on your own? I'm serious. Like, these faces aren't like, whoa, that's stupid. That's like, I. That's a great way to put it.
yes.
Okay, no, okay.
One of the things that apparently I've noticed in the years is that I have a knack for being able to see things in other ways.
Right.
And like when I was at the ocean one day, and I was ducking into the waves, and then I realized that those waves are just like fears and shames and sadnesses. And when we go into them, when you dive into that wave, the water trickles over the top of you and you pop your head up on the other side, and it doesn't have anywhere near the impact on you like it does when you're standing there and you're resisting that wave, and it can knock you down and turn you upside down. Well, when we're resisting our incidents and traumas with our anger, or by trying to numb out or distract ourselves or to use addictions, that's like a person that's standing at the ocean with the waves pounding into you, knocking you all around. But when you learn to jump into that wave and then pop your head up on the other side, that wave doesn't have anywhere near the devastating impact on you like it does when you're trying to resist it with your anger, distractions, addictions, or numbing out. Well, same thing with our fears and our disappointments. When we learn how to process through them, see, then we're able to be in control of ourselves as we're responding to that wave, as opposed to that wave dictating what's going to happen to me.
John, why didn't you just use the wave analogy at the beginning when I asked the question? We could have ended it an hour ago. No, I'm being serious. That is a great way to look at it. There's this huge wave, no matter how big it is, no matter how big your issues are, no matter how long they've been following you. If you put your hands together, like they taught us in swim class, and you dive into it, now you may still have to swim and come back up and deal with things, but you don't get knocked over and lose your sense of balance, and you're all disoriented. You don't lose control of the situation. You have much more control of it.
Right. And when we're saying I don't want to talk about it, we are sometimes subjecting ourselves to getting knocked around by that wave because we're not learning how to process through it. And certainly a person has the right to not talk about something if they don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And sometimes things are very traumatizing for people and they're not ready to talk about it. And so we need to respect that too.
Can I say something on that note? I was going to let you know, but I think this is a great opportunity to say it. So, with a friend of mine who asked that question, they wanted me to say thank you. That did happen. And they also realized that when the daughter brought up the father, that they actually did end up crying on certain occasions, right? So, why would I want to make mom upset, right? There's a lot going on in the world right now. There's a lot going on in our lives on a daily basis. So, from my friend to you, thank you. You did help, and you made a good point. So I guess so. We started off this episode talking about, like I said, and I'll say it again, getting in front of things, owning up to our fears, taking people's power away so they can't really use it against us, if you will. Like, you can't say anything because I'm willing to admit to it. I'm willing to own up to it. I'm even willing to have a discussion with it. And so we went off on a few different topics like we do, which is fine. But to anybody who's listening, that was the point we were trying to make. That was the grand scheme of things, talking about getting in front of our issues, owning up to things. It can be so liberating. We can, I don't like to put John on the spot here because I'm not sure the terminology is right, and I keep saying that, but we take people's ability to judge us in any way, shape, or form, because first of all, nobody should be allowed to judge us. But you can't say anything to me or hurt me when it doesn't hurt me because I've dealt with it, right? I think that's what maybe the simple way to put it is. I'm dealing with it. I'm okay with it. It happened. I'm going to own up to it, and you can't take anything away from me. You can't hurt me with anything. There's nothing you could say to me to make me feel the pain of that issue anymore. So I think that we did a pretty good job of describing it, touching on a few other topics. Like I said along the way, I love John's analogies, especially the one about the wave. And let me reiterate it to you if you didn't hear it or you're just joining us here at the end. John was talking about, and I'm just going to simplify it. If there's a huge wave in front of us, put our hands together and we dive into that wave. And now we're under it and we may have to swim back up, but we're much more in control of the situation than we would have been if we had just stood there and let the wave knock us down. I mean, if we were on swimming in the ocean, you can just spin around, you get lost, you come up, you're not in the same place that you were before. You're all disoriented. So I thought that was a great analogy. So,
right.
John,
and when we're
any
in our
final thoughts?
anger, our anger, we are getting knocked around by that wave. Right. When we're trying to numb out, we're getting knocked around by that wave. When we're trying to distract ourselves or we resort to addictions, we're vulnerable to getting knocked around by that wave.
Beautiful. Seriously, I think so true. So John, any final thoughts? Anything you'd like to say? I know we haven't checked in a few weeks, but anything for the fans? Maybe your information?
Um, I can be reached at contact@supportivealliance.com or www.supportivealliance.com.
Beautiful. And then you can always reach out to us here at the Oppenheimer Projects on our Facebook page, the Oppenheimer Projects on our Instagram page. You can listen to the Teenagers, Toddlers, and Twin podcast available on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts. And also, this episode is going to be able for replay on our YouTube channel. And then also check out the Ryan Mercer Show with Richard Masso. We're going to be back on Monday, Richard and I, and we're going to be talking about the state of the Oscars, the Academy Awards. We're going to be talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We're a little late to that one, but we talked about cancel culture this past week. And we're also going to be talking about Mortal Kombat, the movie that was released last weekend. So catch up with us. And again, touch us on the Facebook page, Instagram page. John, you got a little bit more?
Yeah, and to find out more about what I do, you can go to the Podbean podcast of Checking In with John Anthony, Supportive Alliance.
Perfect. So we're getting some attention here. Yeah. Beautiful. All right. Well, John, thank you for being willing to do this episode with me as always. Always appreciate your information and you joining me.
And thank you for your guidance and direction with your questions and your feedback. It's it's a lot nicer when it makes it flow. So thanks for your part.
Of course, and I'm learning with you. I'm still new at this, so I'm only going to get better, and so is John and everybody else at the Oppenheimer Projects. But until next time, we'll see you next Monday. Bye-bye.